I'd like to welcome you to Hoop City with Paul Sir. I'm going to be focusing right now on FIBA 3x3. It's the start of a new season as we get ready for the runway up to the 2028 LA Olympics. And I'm going to be speaking today with Steve Sir, Canada's top 3x3 player for 8 years, and also now the head coach of the Mongolian men's and women's 3x3 programs. Here's my conversation with Steve. Steve, today literally is the day that 3x3, FIBA 3x3 gets going in the world, with minor events right now, relatively speaking. But the circuit, the tour, is going to start up real soon. It's a new Olympic cycle. Gearing up, this will be the third Olympics that 3x3 will be a medal sport in. The sport is growing in leaps and bounds. There are more events globally than ever before. I would say one of the big growth areas is an area that's very special to you, and that's in the women's side of things. Talk about what's happening in the 3x3 world.
As you said, it's going to be the third Olympic cycle where 3x3 is a medal sport. They've expanded to 12 countries on both the men's and the women's side, up from 8.
From 8, yeah.
More opportunities, which is great. The expansion comes at a good time because there's, I don't think, ever been a point in the sport where it's been as competitive as it is on the Pro Tour and then also connecting to national teams. As you mentioned, there are events starting already. I mean, it's February. When I first started getting involved in 3x3, the season didn't really get going until May. So it's pushed up further and it's pushed back further. It's a full professional season with cups, with Pro Tour stops, with smaller events that connect to these other things. There's so much opportunity now for teams to play and compete and earn spots. One of the main areas that was an area of concern when I started playing was, how do new teams get started in this? And you can see that there are vast opportunities now for new teams to get themselves together, get to a stop, play, and as with everything, well, how do we get going? It's like, well, you're going to have to play, and then you're going to have to win. So that's the hardest part. But it's great to see from a growth standpoint. It's great to see the amount of players that are coming in, how serious this is being taken, the amount of training and the amount of attention to detail. All of that, when you wrap it all up, makes for a great product to watch, a super competitive field in which to be a part of. And as you mentioned too, the women's side continues to grow by leaps and bounds. So this is not just on the men's side as well. Like this is continuing to grow and be pushed forward for both sides.
Well, and I think it's exciting to see because the women's side, it's taken a few years to start to gain what I would call just momentum.
Yep.
But it's become more professionalized, obviously, more participation. The players playing are better. The teams are taking it much more seriously. Like you described, I'll go back to that term. The professionalization of 3x3 is really taking hold. And, of course, that's what you're involved with. Heavily involved with the country of Mongolia, large geographic countries stuck geographically in the middle between China and Russia, 3.5 million people in a vast space. But they have really targeted 3x3 as a sport that they're not just passionate about, but they believe they can compete at the Olympic level. And that was borne out this past year when your Mongolian women finished with the silver medal at the World Cup. That's huge, Steve. Talk about that journey.
It was not a easy, quick journey.
No.
2 years ago when I took over the women's program, we had won one game on the Pro Tour, on the Women's Series Tour, and it was not a pretty one, if I'm just being honest. It was one of those ones.
Fight.
Yeah, with big, heavy rocks. So it was something that when we looked at, but it's fun to joke about now, especially with the girls, because of how far we've come. But one of the things when I came into the program, in particular on the women's side, was there's something there. We can get better if we just focus on the simple, basic things of basketball. If we take care of the ball better. Still a work in progress for us. Our passing is something that can always get better. But if we improve that, we'll be a little bit better. If we shoot it a little bit better, we'll be better. If we have a better commitment to the defensive end of the ball, I mean, one of the areas in 3x3 that has oftentimes been misunderstood is that it's fast paced and you can give this up. You don't give anything up. You have to play basketball. Like the parallels that you can draw between 5-on-5 and 3x3. It's basketball, but it's different. But then there's the things that are universally correct between both sports, where it's you don't just concede points. You don't just make the decision of, I'm just going to wander out here and I'm going to ask for play defense. And this was one thing that we had to really instill on the women's side, was taking pride on that side of the ball and being a group that made it difficult for them to score. Of course, it's 3x3. It's fast. There's good players. Every year, as you mentioned, the players have gotten better. So you're going to have to make that effort. It's not going to be easy. But then also, too, the emotional and the mental side of it was a big part of that, too. Feeling worthy to compete and feeling that if you do, much like what we talked about before, if you're doing the hard work day by day, the real hard work, not the Instagrammable stuff that you get pats on the back for through likes and comments, like the thankless stuff. If you're doing that, that should instill in you that you are deserving of good results. You are deserving of these wins. And that was a big hump for us to get over, because we would run up in games where we'd be playing tough, we'd be right there, and then there would be a tough moment or a couple plays that wouldn't go right, and we would start to get this high level of anxiety of, here we go again. We shouldn't be here in the first place. That was a big mountain to climb for us, and I don't think for anybody that's ever a fully formed thing. Everyone's always going to have doubt when they're competing, especially when you're competing against teams that are really good and are really going after you. But the stride that we made there to give our women credit was huge, because we went from a place of just kind of being patted on the back of, you guys keep doing a good job, you're trying so hard, and I hated that for the players. This has to motivate you to want, very much so. This has to motivate you to stick it to them, that you're not just here to be the participation ribbon. Like, you're here to play, you're here to win games, you're here to compete, you're here to show the hard work that you've been putting in. And steadily progressing, winning a bronze medal at Asia Cup, massive step for us. Winning a women's series in Ulaanbaatar, huge step for us. And then to have that the next year end in a silver medal at World Cup was unthinkable. But it showed what's possible when you really invest in the betterment of the group, the betterment of the individuals. Obviously, what's good for the individual is going to be good for the group. What's good for the group is going to be good for the individual. And our girls really bought into that. And now the next challenge will be is, how do you maintain that? How do you get to that rare air and take that little itty bitty step, that game of inches, to even take it a little bit further, or just maintain what you've done? And that'll be the next challenge. And it's a fun challenge, because they took these ones on head on and saw what was possible. So now you can always say that, hey, you can't tell me that it's not rewarding. This changed these girls' lives. Now you got to be tough enough to get back to work and realize that you got a whole season in front of you, and you got to try and do it again.
From 2 years ago, winning one game, to walking down the steps of the presidential national palace, receiving medals from the president of Mongolia, because you accomplished something that's never been accomplished by any Mongolian team before, to medal in a World Cup or in any major world team event before. Like you said, it changed their lives. But now comes the hard work.
Yeah.
You had the hard work to this point, but now comes the hard work, and it's different hard work. It's the same but different.
Yeah.
Maintaining, not dropping back, maintaining and building. And it's still going to be the slow build, isn't it? There's no shortcut. No,
and it still comes back to the same things. Are we going to get better as players? Like, are the players improving? That's a question in talking to other coaches that I think handle this the right way. It's a question that I ask myself a lot when we're over there. Are we getting better? Like, are our players getting better? Do they feel like they're getting better? Yeah. Doesn't mean we play great all the time, but are we taking steps? Are we better in certain situations than we were a month ago? 3x3 it's a wild sport, because it's constantly changing.
And it is a marathon year.
Very much. And it's one of the hardest competitive areas of having stops be your form of competition. It's impossible to peak all the time you play over 8 months. And that's such a unique area for 3x3 because you have all these World Tour events. We've had World Tour in Edmonton, so people who are listening, I've had a chance to see what an event like this looks like. It's a 2-day event. You play a maximum, if you win everything, 5 games in those 2 days. You have to factor in travel. You have to factor in tournament you might have coming next or the tournament you're coming from. But to be constantly on some steady arc of improvement all year is impossible. You're going to have peaks and you're going to have valleys. How quickly can you get out of the low spots? When you are up, how do you work to maintain it without having an unrealistic amount of pressure on the teams? And then how do you manage your practice time, your recovery time, your time in the weight room, your time in video, all those other things around, trying to make sure that we're just ready for what's next and we're learning from what happened. It's a big challenge, but I think especially when you get into 3x3 World, you and I were talking a little bit about this yesterday. It's a really interesting community of people. There's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of big borrow and steal. And there's also a lot of understanding within the community that, like, this is a tough sport. It requires a lot. So, you know, when people get down, there also is support within the community of, like, you know, you guys will get back. You guys will keep working. But, you know, if you're in an event early, like, well, why don't we get a practice together and we'll work through some stuff. We can talk, we can do that. And then you might see that same team over the next weekend playing in a competition. That stuff lends to it too. And I think for the players, you have to be cut from a certain cloth in order to take that on. You got to be, I'm not saying tougher, but you got to be a little different to want to have that challenge of, like, okay, we won last week. Got a whole new tournament where it all resets next week. Can we do it again? It's really tough to do, and but it makes it a lot of fun. It's a very, very different way to do competition, but a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, and like you said, I'd like to highlight and emphasize a lot of really good people, not just well-intended, but genuinely caring and genuinely collaborative while still maintaining their goals and ambitions.
Very much so.
But there really seems to have been a culture of collaboration that the people genuinely seem to buy into the fact that if we work together, we're all going to get better, as opposed to what often happens of teams, players, coaches going into silos and trying to hide what they're doing. There's really no secrets in 3x3.
No, and I could talk about this for an hour. It's one of the things that really fascinates me about the sport. When you talk to most of the people that are involved, men and women's side, there's always a story that led them to 3x3. They weren't drafted. It wasn't something that they played all the way up from youth. Everybody in a formal setting, everyone who's played basketball has played 3-on-3, whether it's at Hoop It Up or Gus Macker or Red Bull or whatever you want, whatever version you have in your community, everyone's played it. In practice, when you have to teach specific things and you want to have more space, and everyone always says the same thing. It's a lot of fun. I have more room to be creative. I'm touching the ball. It's harder, much harder. There's more conditioning, off-ball movement, all those good things. But all the people that are involved in it on a professional level, all of them came into the sport and they did because they wanted to. They chose to. There was an opportunity that they saw. Very rarely are you looking at this and there's someone that begrudgingly was taken into the sport. All right, I'll do it. There have been people that have done that. Absolutely. They don't last very long. So what I've always loved about the 3x3 world is you got to be a little bit of an outlaw to be in 3x3. There has to be a little bit of, maybe this didn't work out for me in 5-on-5, or maybe this didn't happen. I'm coming in here with something to prove. I want to show that I can do this. I want to play for my national team. I want to do this and have it be mine. For coaches, most of the coaches that have come into 3x3 that are established now, we're doing it for nothing. They're either doing it for free or just a little bit of travel or something like that on top of maybe another job that they were already doing. There's a few guys involved in this world that work, and then when it's time to go to 3x3, they're away for the weekend and they're using their time off. I love that about it because it gets to the heart of what we were talking about before. It's being competitive. It's wanting to be a part of something where this is still a little bit of undiscovered country, where you're blazing your own trail in your own community, and then you're connecting at these international events. And you're competing against these other places that are trying to figure this out and trying to put a strategy together of their own. We've done that here in Canada with Edmonton hosting multiple World Tour, Challenger, Women's Series, Quest. I mean, Edmonton's been the leader. In other areas of the country, we've had efforts. It hasn't been able to stabilize, I think, the same way that you see over in Europe and Asia, where you can count on every year in all these different markets events happening. But a big effort has been made, and a lot of people enjoy it. I love that about Mongolia as well, is they've identified this is our possible real shot, being at the plate, of hitting the ball out of the park and saying we're going to the Olympics. We're qualifying our teams to play at the Olympics. And our women's team played at the Tokyo Olympics because they qualified through the format that they had at that time. But now what we really want is we want to play at the Olympics because we earned the spot through competition. And we're at a stage now where we can compete to get there and not rely on maybe a system. I love that part of the game. I think it's so cool to hear the stories within the game of what led people to there and then what makes them successful while they're there, as opposed to it's just a stopover and something for me to do. I could go on, but I think that lends to the excitement of the sport and the importance that a lot of people put into it, is because it's generally in most cases a labor of love. And it's never been because I'll just do this because there's lots of money that's being put my way, or I'll get all this recognition. Tons of stuff doesn't get recognized in the sport, but it's still an Olympic level. It's becoming more and more professionalized, as we mentioned. And the people that are in it, like having to try and figure out how to make this work, and the amount of work that goes into it. A lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Very special. You have been a stalwart in it for a long, long time. I think it's now going on, is it 9 years or 10 years you've been involved in 3x3?
9 years.